Good afternoon, Patriots. This is Bill Muckler on the American Vision, brought to you by the TLBTV network and sponsored by the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm coming to you from my home in studio in Cocoa, Florida, and I'm pleased today to have a very fantastic guest. I'm trying to find words to describe Jerry Loeb, who's written a couple of books that I've just read and I've just enjoyed so much. They're both humorous and outrageous, along with very informative about what's going on today with our society, our culture, and our social justice warriors, you might say. So let me introduce to you Jerry Loeb, the author of Politically Derelict and Politically Derelict 2. Jerry, how are you, and where are you coming to us from?
Yes, I'm talking to you today from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Fantastic. And we've just had a time change. We're recording this right after the time change. So Jerry's a little bit earlier in the day than I am, so it's morning where he's at. But Jerry, tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'd also like you to tell our audience about your dad also, who was in the military about the same time I was.
Yeah, my dad joined the military in 1953, just as Korea was already over. He came in as a Navy musician because he already played the violin. And after about 18 months of doing that, he decided he wanted to fly airplanes. And they thought he was crazy because he didn't even have anything remotely like decent grades in high school. And he left and he passed and he came back wearing the golden wings of an aviator. And he's been flying planes ever since, up until his retirement with Eastern in 1987. And at 31, he was the youngest lieutenant commander in the Navy when he went to the reserves. And my dad's always had a superb sense of timing. He came in the Navy just after Korea ended, and he went reserves right before the Tet Offense started. So he never saw any active combat other than flying around and chasing Russians around in the first the Pacific and then, of course, the Mediterranean. But so I grew up a Navy brat, lived pretty much everywhere. And I decided at the age of 19 that I was definitely going to go into service, but I wasn't going to go float around in some tin can destroyer for 4 or 5 months. I knew about that life. So I joined the Army. And before I knew it, I was stationed in Germany, which was pretty good because I learned German in high school. And I immediately took to it. I loved it. At 1980, I got out, decided I wanted to go back in, but this time I came back as a second lieutenant. And I went back to Germany, and I stayed there for 15 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And I've been to Germany several times, but I also wanted to mention that Jerry and I are fellow officers, me a Marine and he in the Army, of course. So we've got a lot in common. And we also have a lot in common as far as how we look at America. So tell us a little bit about how you started, or what gave you the idea to write your first book, Politically Derelict.
Okay, Bill, May 2nd, 2016, the election was going on full cycle, and everything was on Facebook and social media and the television. You couldn't avoid it unless you lived in a cave. Well, I went to a McDonald's one morning. It's about 7:30 in the morning, and there were some older folks there drinking coffee, and they were talking about the upcoming election. And instead of getting mad and jumping up and down, they were talking very reasonable tones about what they believed, who they believed should win. And this was amazing. This was completely different than what I'd seen on social media. So I sat there and listened for a while, because the Germans have a saying, you can close your eyes, but not your ears. And I realized these guys are actually having a reasonable dialogue. In today's terms, what would that be called? And I thought, politically obsolete? No. Politically derelict? Yeah, that's it. Politically derelict. I wrote this down on a napkin. I went back home, and in 9 weeks later, I had Politically Derelict written. I published it September 16th, 2016.
Wow, you wrote it in 9 weeks. It took me 30 years to write my first book, and it looks like it's going to take me another 30 to finish the second one, although I'd better get it done quick before something happens to me. So 9 weeks, that's amazing. And your book is really different from the point of view of the way you wrote it and the way you structured. And you don't really have characters in it like I have in my book, but yet you have all these various characters in the book. And tell us how you created all that, because it's really ingenious.
Well, I got tired of people trolling my pages and saying nasty things and threatening to have me thrown in Facebook jail. So I decided, well, I'll just create a different profile. I'll go on all these liberal pages and I'll see what these people are having to say. And I realized after a week, I hit gold because these folks were saying things that were so outrageous, that were so crazy, that they couldn't even be. You had to wonder if they were like, had been released from an insane asylum just the week before. But anyway, this went on and on. I thought, I'm going to write down exactly what they say. I'll kind of clean it up a little bit and make it somewhat literate and put their words right in a book. And that's what I did with Politically Derelict. And the characters you see are real people. Their names have been changed, obviously, expressing exactly what they thought at the time about certain candidates, mostly about then candidate Clinton, and of course, our president now, Donald J. Trump. And what they said about Trump was just beyond crazy. And I thought, well, okay, I'll write this stuff all down. I'll put it on the book. I'll see what happens. And I couldn't believe it. I sold 2,000 copies within just a couple months. And I thought, wow, I've got myself a gold mine here. And people kept telling me, you should write another book. And I thought, okay, well, Politically Derelict focuses on before the 2016 election and the craziness that happened. And Politically Derelict Volume 2 is the year after Trump was inaugurated. And just when you didn't think things could get any crazier, well, there it is in Politically Derelict Volume 2. The rise of Antifa, all these different resistance groups, crazy marches with women wearing pink hats and the whole bit. I mean, even Ken Casey on acid could never have conceived of anything like this. But there it was, and I thought, well, this time I'll take their statements. I won't change their words around. I'll leave it exactly as they wrote it, warts and all, to show exactly just how crazy the right, or the left, and sometimes the right, have gotten after the election. And there you have Politically Derelict Volume 2.
Yeah, that's amazing how you did that. And what you did is you put it in their own words to show them how ridiculous and how outrageous they really are, and really point out, in a sense, some of their twisted thinking. I'm trying to keep this clean, Jerry, because what you did was really it was so humorous the way you did it, and of course some of the material was pretty humorous too. When I sit there and read, and I think, did they really say this stuff? But then I knew you quoted them, so it must have been that way.
Well, I have to use my journalism degree for something correct, so I figured I'd do that. You can think of both the Politically Derelict books as a combination between Irma Brombeck and Louis Grizzard with an attitude. And that's pretty much the way I wrote. Because I love both those writers. They were really, really good. They'd write these little epigrams and short little sentences and thoughts and so forth. Well, I did the same thing with Politically Derelict for both books, because let's face it, most people seem to have permanent ADHD. What happened last week, they totally forget what happened. What happened 50 years ago, they don't even have a clue. And I figured I'd make this as updated, as timely as possible. So the people that bought the book when it came out in late January this year, they said it was kind of like a journalistic account of what happened over the last year and just how crazy things got. And that's pretty true. That's pretty much what the book is.
Yeah, actually, now you mentioned it, and I just got finished reading it, and I wrote a review for you. By the way, for anybody that's watching this, authors really love it when you write a review of our works. You cannot believe how much we like that. How about, I know you do too, and also we love signing books, although with Jerry's books, I bought them both for my tablet, so I read them as ebooks. But also, people can get your book it's in a paperback style, right? The large paperback style.
That's correct. It's on Amazon and paperback, and it's also as an ebook on Smashwords.
Yeah, and that's something we have in common also. I noticed that you first went to you went to Smashwords as an ebook with your book. Is that correct?
That's correct. According to a Publishers Weekly and all the industry trends, people still read paperbacks. They still love them. But ebooks have increased an average of 10 to 15% every year since 2012. And they're going to get much bigger. Because now you can take your book on your tablet or your phone and read it whenever you're sitting somewhere.
Well,
And for us, that works out really great.
When I first got the idea to write my book, I came up with the material. This is going back 30 years back to the 80s when I was a consultant. And as you read my book is set is told by a group of 4 consultants, telling the story, right? Well,
right.
I never thought that I was going to write a book, but we would talk, and when we're riding in the car, or when I get home on the weekend, I'd talk, and pretty soon my family got sick of hearing me, and they said, "Why don't instead of you ranting to us, why don't you go ahead and write all this stuff down?" Hey, there it is. Thank you. So I started writing this stuff down. I tried to write the book, I guess, 15 years ago or so, and I tried to write it on a yellow pad, and I couldn't do that because I threw away more paper than I had. And then I started on a typewriter, and that was a disaster because every time I'd write a few lines, I wanted to change something around or move something around a little bit. Actually, I had written the book in my head. But when I finally got the book written, a good friend of mine who is a Marine Corps retired lieutenant colonel who lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico, by the way, had written some books, and he said, "Bill, the best thing you can do is just go to Smashwords and have your book published as an ebook on Smashwords, and it's free, and they'll teach you how to do it." And so my son and I started watching their videos, and we learned how to format the book and everything. So that's the route we went. And I guess what I'm saying now is I have a lot of people come to me on Facebook, and you probably do the same, Jerry, and they say, "Hey, I want to write a book. How do I go about it and everything?" And I just say, write it and do an ebook first. Once you get the ebook down, so you kind of know what you have, then you can make it into a print book. And I presume that's what you did?
Yeah, it's always better if you're going to write a book, you do it on the ebook first and you sell that, or you put that out there about a month or so before your paperback. It also helps with marketing and promoting. So when it comes out on Amazon or whatever company you want to use, you've already worked out the bugs, you figured out where the little problems were, and you fix it, and it works pretty smoothly. Plus, again, people know, most of the people I've dealt with have told me, "Well, I like the ebook concept, but I still want to get a copy in my hand." Well, that's great. Then you have people who can get pre-orders and that type of thing. And that's the marketing strategy I use for this book, Politically Derelict. And so far, it's done pretty well. So I'm pretty pleased with the results just in the first month. I mean, I sold 289 copies. And it also helps that you have a Facebook or any type of social media presence, for good and for bad. And I'll get into that in a second. The more people that know about your books or about what you're trying to do, or art or anything, the better. And Facebook and these social media platforms are a great way to do it. That's the good side. The bad side is, as you see in Politically Derelict 1 and 2, all these strange people that write you unsolicited, like what I call the Facebook fraud lines. Yes, the ones that all ask you things like, "How old are you? Are you married? How much money do you have? And are there any living relatives around you?" And living out here near the desert, I kept getting this idea that somebody was going to meet me, kill me, take my money, and bury me in the desert. Fortunately, it never happened. I get like 9 or 10 of these per day now. "Oh, you wrote this book?" "Yes, I did." "Well, tell me about it. Go to my author page. They'll tell you." Sometimes it gets ridiculous. And of course, you get your share of haters out there, both on the right and the left, mostly on the left because they don't like these 2 books at all. And they call me all sorts of names. And then they get mad at me and have me banned on Facebook. The same day that Politically Derelict Volume 2 was published, I was banned on Facebook. I have to admit, I'm now a 5-time Facebook felon for 30 days.
Hey,
And
that
you know
makes
what?
you an ace, right? you get shot down you shoot them. I guess if you get shot down 5 times, you wouldn't be an ace, but that makes you an ace in my book.
I guess so, but the funny thing is, I sold even more books because people thought it was because of my book that I got banned. That really wasn't quite the case, but that's what they wanted to think that was fine. And people start buying more copies, thinking, "Oh, he wrote this book and he got banned. It must be good." And well, the book stands by itself. But yeah, it's amazing on social media, especially on Facebook, how you can be basically thrown into Facebook's version of county jail for something you wrote 9 months ago. Not something you did last week, but 9 months ago. And that's what happened to me. And I thought, this is kind of crazy. But I guess, as P.T. Barnum once said, bad publicity is better than no publicity, I suppose.
Well, I've been in Facebook jail a few times myself, so I can relate. In fact, I did a video. I do some solo videos at times, and I did a video, I guess, about a month ago, and it was about free speech. And I recognize that when Facebook puts us in Facebook jail, they're not really taking away our free speech rights, because only the government, that only pertains to government and not to private industry. But in a sense, Facebook has gotten to a point where if they put you in Facebook jail, that's the same thing as taking away your free speech. So I documented all the things that they've done to me. And for example, I did an interview with an author from California whose father was a B-17 pilot in World War II and was shot down. So he wrote this book, Shot Down. Facebook considers that spam. And I've done all sorts of things trying to get the book on the Facebook and social media, and they won't do it. I wrote an article called 6 Seconds to Live about 2 Marines that defended their barracks in Iraq, and they had 6 seconds from the time they saw this truck full of explosives coming at them till they finally got it. And of course, they didn't make it. That's considered spam by Facebook. 2 Marines die, putting their lives on the line to save their fellows, and they're spam. So, and maybe we're getting a little bit off track here, but tell us a little bit more about social media and how you navigate through that, and how you use social media.
Well, I didn't even join Facebook until September of 2015. And at first, it was pretty neat. I thought I could, connect up with some of my relatives back east who I hadn't seen or talked to in years because they had Facebook pages. And it was also a way to connect with my kids over in Germany, so that was pretty neat. But it became pretty apparent that the things that would appear on my timeline every single day were getting more and more political. And some of them were rather outrageous. And this was, again, long before the election happened and things like that were going on. But I realized there were a lot of people out there that had some real major issues with the way things were going in all sorts of different things. And as you laid out in your book, in a very good way, Chapter 18, Political Correctness, that some people didn't care about being politically correct. They just wanted to put out what they wanted to say. And other folks sort of danced around the question of what they wanted to say. But the thing that impressed me most was the use of what they call memes, little posters and little things that have messages written on them. And some of them were just completely hilarious. And some of them were a lot more true than we want to think. And it seems on Facebook, especially now, you can post a really crazy meme, as long as it doesn't violate their nudity policy or whatever, and you get away with it. But if you write something they don't like, bam, it gets deleted, it gets removed, or you find yourself like me in Facebook jail with, a pack of, Cheetos, Pruno, and Snickers bars for 30 days, and you can't do anything. And that's pretty much the way they operate. They're now going after people more about what they write than what they post on memes. And if you even share a post that they don't like, they can ban you too, which is like saying you're accomplice after the fact, which is really crazy. And there is no real, if you write things that they like, you can write what you want. But if they don't like it, they take it off and they put you in jail.
And it's not only Facebook, but it's Twitter as well, because I've got a Twitter account and I think I've got about 2,500 followers, and that's all. And I'm following 5,000 people, but people won't follow you unless you follow them, mostly, unless people are buying the accounts. And I've never spent a penny on buying a Facebook or a Twitter or any kind of a social media account. But on Twitter, if I would try and post something on Twitter and they didn't like it, they wouldn't let me do it. I mean, and I guess you've seen the same thing.
Yeah, well, if you go to advertise things, for sale, you have things like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Those are pretty much the big three. Instagram is just simply a bunch of pictures. Although I have to admit, on Instagram, I definitely like the free porn that the ladies send me every single day. The free soft porn, I should say. I mean, that's really nice. But Twitter has seemed to disintegrate into one big universe of I said this, you say that, back and forth, or as it actually started out, here I am today going out and having a nice meal. And that's how Twitter actually started, with people saying, look at me, look what I'm doing, and how beautiful my life is, this type of thing. And Facebook started with a bunch of people with their cats and puppies, and look how that's evolved.
Yeah.
So the way these things are going to evolve in the future, I have no idea. But I use my political stuff on Facebook, although there are times where I sit there and type something and think, if I write this, will I get banned again? And I think, I don't care. And I put it right out there. That's the true essence of being a political derelict, Bill.
Oh, okay. I'm learning. So, do you have any thoughts or plans for Politically Derelict Volume 3, or maybe another book of some type?
Well, let's see. In July, I'm going to publish my second novel called The Perfect Glitch. And that novel is about video companies and video gamers. It's fiction, of course, but most of these online companies, they've now evolved into having big tournaments. And these tournaments are a big deal. People can make hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I took a fictional tournament with a product that actually exists and turned into a novel. Wrote that about 2 years ago, and I fixed it up. I incorporated the latest advances in technology, just to see how these things work and how just something as minor as a little tournament can turn into a big internet or social media sensation. It is kind of satire, but satire is only the truth one step removed, taken to a funny degree. And seeing the things that you see on YouTube and on social media and even on television every day, I couldn't even come up with better stuff than what happens in real life. It's just not possible.
Yeah, that's the old story, isn't it? About you couldn't make this up, could you? You couldn't write it and make it up. Hey, I didn't know you had written another novel before, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was a historical novel called Wahoo Dan. That was historical fictions, and I published that in 2015. Wahoo Dan was my first step into self-publishing. So all my mistakes that I did, I learned on that. And it's historical fiction about a series of murders in Texas in 1926, with a cameo appearance by Joan Crawford, of all people. And it was basically a mystery whodunit. And I wrote that book, and I didn't know much about marketing and promoting. I put it out there, and some people liked it and got some reviews. But I thought, wow, this is not that difficult. You just upload the book, you get a decent cover, and you do some marketing and promotion, and you see what happens. So I took those lessons I learned with that book, just historical fiction, and that's when I decided to go into humor. But I like writing in different genres, fiction and nonfiction. But I have to say, writing the two political derelict series was the most fun I ever had writing a book. I've never had so much fun.
I know. I've never had so much fun as reading them, because they're really great. And anybody that's watching this, you just got to get both these books, and you can order them from Jerry, and he'll sign them for you, or you can order them for your Kindle and do it that way. So you wrote this period piece, like you said, and can people get that in paperback, or is it just on ebook, or where do we go to find that?
Well, you can get it as an ebook on Google Books. I think Barnes & Noble has it. Amazon hasn't gotten it yet because I want to fix some of the parts up and put it out as both a Kindle version and a paperback version. I'll do that later this year. But by the end of this year, I'll have 4 books available on Amazon and on Smashwords.
On Smashwords, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
I really like Smashwords. They've really treated me well, much better than Amazon has, by the way. I better not say anything or Amazon will really come after me. They, I took all my print books off of Amazon because the people that wanted to buy my book, they said, but we want you to sign it. And when it was on Amazon, out of shipping out of their warehouse, I don't have any way I can sign the book. So they sent my books back, and I guess you probably have a supply of print books yourself that you can mail out and sign.
I do. I usually buy extra copies from Amazon because, as you know, you get them at a much cheaper price. And folks that want to buy my book, they just contact me, pay me through PayPal, and I stick it right in the mail and send it to them. I even had someone once that asked me, can you sign an ebook for me? And I said, how? There's no way to do that. So I thought that was kind of funny. Someone wanted me to sign an ebook, but oh well. Maybe they just didn't know what an ebook was, but it was kind of funny.
Well, I never thought about that, but the way it is with PDFs now, you can actually sign a document, like if you're going to buy, purchase a home or something like that, you sign on the PDF, so to say. Who knows what will happen in a few years from now? We may be able to actually sign our ebooks too. I'm sure somebody will come up with a way to do that.
I guess there would be. That's the question, Bud.
Who knows?
I heard on news this morning that audiobooks are becoming very big. People like listening to books as they're either driving or doing something and so forth. But I haven't even looked into that possibility yet. But the thought of me sitting down and having to read Politically Derelict into a microphone and not laugh myself, I don't know if that's possible. But
I couldn't either, and I don't have the voice for it. Actually, I'm having my book made into an audio book right now. I've got a guy who's doing it, and he's got a few other guys that are working with him, and I have no idea how it's going to end up, but we're looking forward to it. So maybe the thing to do is to find somebody who who could do that for you, although it would probably be more effective if you could get through it with a straight face. You may have to do more than one take.
Well, I might have to become the second reincarnation of Robin Williams and use all these different voices. I don't know.
There you go.
One of the best things people said about Politically Derelict Volume 2 said that, your book is a really good bathroom companion. And I said, what do you mean? Well, when I go in there, things kind of go out faster. I thought, wow, I wrote a book that's a natural diuretic. Who knew? So, but humor is easy to write if you have enough, funny things to write about. And with these 2 books, there were things I didn't even put in that book. I thought, no, this goes too far even for me. I can't do this. But, I did have a lot of fun writing them, and people so far like to read them, and they like them quite a bit.
Tell us a little bit about some of your characters who are real characters but with fictitious names. What are some of their names, and what do they talk about?
Well, firstly, one of the big characters is Leslie Liberty. Leslie Liberty is a class of, as you remember her,
yes,
of Berkeley, 1967, and she's the type that if it's any type of liberal cause, no matter how crazy, she's all for it. And then you have Kwame Montana, who is an aging Black Panther from the 60s. He also seems to have these problems with the law, which prevents him from getting certain things done. You have Johnny Prado, who makes a sideline living of, shall we say, escort service across the southern border. And quite a few other people in there, but those are the 3 main characters, and of course there are a bunch more. But those were real people and real words who wrote those things, and they didn't just write them in the heat of passion or being upset. Sometimes these were like days and weeks after a certain event had happened. and they were still just as crazy a couple weeks later writing their stuff as they were before. I also got people from the right who thought that my first book didn't trash the liberals enough, which I thought, you've got to be kidding. I mean, we had a whole chapter using the Urban Facebook Dictionary 2.0, words you can say on Facebook and get banned, and how to say the same thing and not go to jail, based on my experience. And some people thought, who wrote me later on, said, well, you didn't go far enough. And I said, you've got to be kidding. I mean, how much further do you want to go in this, right? But there was one individual who even challenged me to an online arm wrestling contest. I thought, how do you do that? How do you arm wrestle online? That's impossible. But, you know, he had his own way of thinking, I guess. But I figured I got to put these comments to the book, too. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that you didn't spare anybody in either one of the books. And I have to tell our viewers, if you think that there's such a thing as political correctness, this is just the opposite of political correctness. There's no political correctness in either one of these books, and they're so humorous and yet so to the point. You just got to get them.
Well, thanks, Bill. I appreciate it. But people have asked me, when are you going to do PD3? I'll probably do it next couple of months. But soon after we have this next round of elections in November, I'm sure there's going to be the I word is going to be used. You know, let's impeach the president. Let's all do this. So I'm sure the talk will ramp up. And even if the Democrats don't win a majority in the House, they're still going to, you know, talk about these kind of things. So I figure with the way things are going in Washington nowadays, I have more than enough material for a couple more books.
Yeah, I can believe it because I guess some people think, well, if you're a conservative or a libertarian, or you don't think the same way that the leftists do and the socialists do, that if they're in power, there's nothing you can do. But really, that's when it's the best time, I think, because that's when they're the most ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like a lot of people that, you know, grew up in the 70s, I was an absolute liberal in the 70s, and I got really upset when Ford pardoned Nixon in September of 1974. And I said, see, it's rigged. It's rigged. Well, after I went into the military, I realized that, you know, you can have your political differences in how you believe, but when somebody is shooting at you, politics really doesn't matter anymore. It's a matter of staying alive and that type of thing. As I got older, I realized that most of the stuff I had been told when I was younger, that it was a complete crock. It didn't make any sense. Not it didn't make any sense, but the economics of it didn't make any sense. But like, you know, a lot of people, you start out as a liberal, and then when you get your first paycheck, you turn to a conservative, and then you wonder why so much money is being taken out to pay for people that don't do anything. And that's usually what cures people from being a liberal, at least to a point. But there's some folks, like where I live in Albuquerque, you know, when you see someone my age, around 60, who still believes that smoking weed is a great thing and living your life day to day is a great thing, but they wonder why they have no money and they have no other assets besides what little amount they can, you know, suck off somebody else. And you wonder, gee, maybe if you had converted earlier, you might have more now. But of course, that's being openly materialistic, and some people don't like that. But yeah, I've met some people in the last few years here in Albuquerque that they were losers then, and they're losers now, and they'll never change. And you cannot possibly change their way of thinking because they're too much locked into it.
It's amazing how some people just get this paradigm paralysis. They can't think out of the box. They can't think that there's maybe a different way that things can be done, or a different way to think about things. But what you're saying just rings so true, in that the people who seem to want everything are the people who don't want to work for anything. And it's like, hey, I'm entitled. You owe me something. And I'm thinking, I don't owe anybody anything. My grandparents came from Germany, and they were immigrants, and they didn't have anything. My dad went to school through the 3rd grade because his father died when he was 9 years old. And he worked all his life. I've worked all my life, and I'm thinking, why does somebody think that just because you don't want to work and you want to spend my money, I'm supposed to go along with this?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way society has started. And I think it started back in the 60s with some of the entitlement programs, which they probably had a good idea in mind, but it started a slow avalanche of, well, if he can get something for free, so can I. I mean, I've even been tempted to change my name to Geraldo Lopez just to get free stuff, but I don't speak Spanish, and I don't think that would work too well here in Albuquerque.
That's a character in your second book, isn't it, Geraldo Lopez?
Yes, Geraldo
I think he
Lopez has,
comes in what, chapter 15, something like that.
yes, Geraldo Lopez, I was writing these things on Facebook. Geraldo Lopez says about his opinion of things of the day, and I wrote it with a guy who obviously has a little trouble, with English, this type of thing. And people loved it so much, I thought, well, I guess I'll put that in my next book. People liked that chapter. They also liked the chapter, The Hillary Huskow Diary.
That's
Really,
chapter 16, I think it is. Like what, about the second or third last one? Tell us about the Hillary Huskow chapter.
yeah, I figured, well, what would happen if Hillary Clinton actually went to federal prison? What a big media storm this would be, and historical, and nothing else. And if she got in jail and actually wrote her own books for a change and did her own diary, what would it look like? And before I knew it, I had like 10 pages. I thought, wow, this is pretty funny, actually. So I put this out to other people in Facebook and other social media. And they said, you've got to put that in your next book. Little did they know that exactly 7 weeks later, I'd publish it. But people like that chapter a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing how these things work out. Anything else you want to tell us about your books, or what's coming up for you in your life?
Well, let's see. Right now, I'm helping my dad promote his CD. It's called Remember Love, A Musical Journey. My dad is 82 years old and has been a classical violinist for about 40, 50 years. So last year, he sat down with some friends in Las Vegas, Nevada, and they recorded an album of violin music, piano music, and guitar music, usually old standards and things like Amazing Grace and Beyond the Sea, some American music classics. And finally, after some holdups in production, his album will finally be available in the next week or two. And 82 years old, he's now recorded his second CD. So, I figure if my dad's still going at 82, there's hope for me too to keep writing and doing some things. So that, and of course, I have another novel coming out in July, like I said before, The Perfect Lich. And after that, who knows? I'll sit down and write PD free because I love writing and people like me.
Well, we know there's hope for you, and hopefully you'll be able to keep writing for us, because we need your talent and your wit to keep us going. So, hey, folks, as you're watching this, boys and girls, get Jerry's books. So, Jerry, tell us, and there's going to people have already seen the article by the time they see the show, but we'll have all the links in there where you can go to Amazon, your Facebook link, and all that. Do you have a web page?
No, I don't. I've been using basically Facebook as my web page, my
Mm-hmm.
author page, my personal page. Web pages are great, but there's like 7 billion people on the planet. Every single person has a web page. And it's true. I mean, that's what they tell us anyway. So you only have a following of one yourself. But soon I'm going to put together a newsletter to folks who buy my books and other authors like yourself who I like and like to help promote. And I wanted to launch that in February, but I think I'll finally launch that in April. And at that point, I'll probably have to put on a newsletter, webpage kind of deal. So even though I resisted doing a webpage, I guess it's inevitable. You have to have one.
And when we talked on the phone before in our phone conversations, you told us you have subscribers for your, I guess, email subscribers. You got what, several thousand?
Well, just a little over 1,000 so far. It's going to be called the Politically Derelict Newsletter. That's going to be that's the name of it, at least for now. But again, I'll have other authors like yourself and some other folks who I've met, in the last year or two, who write really good books, who get absolutely no recognition whatsoever, and they just have trouble breaking through to make some type of sales or get some name recognition. And this is one way to do that. And for people to subscribe, it costs them nothing, and they can see what things are coming down the pipe, both with my books and other people's books, and a way to sort of get away from Facebook, because after all, one gets really tired of being banned every couple of months, thrown in jail again. And on this particular page, all comments are welcome. I don't do any censoring or banning, and I'm sure that's probably going to become an issue sooner or later. But no, I don't believe in banning people's comments, because if you take away the First Amendment from people, there's nothing much left, really.
That's true. So very true. So anyway, boys and girls, I guess we'll have we're going to run out of time sooner or later, and I guess that time has come now. So, Jerry, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today, and you've been truly delightful. And I hope everybody gets as much fun by reading your books, and they're going to have to order them in order to have a lot of fun. So, we'll let's go ahead and say goodbye to the folks, and we'll see them next time.
All right, folks. Remember, being politically derelict is not a state of mind; it's a state of being. There you go.
Hey, boys and girls, 2020, A Clear Vision for America is a book of 20 chapters of 20 solutions that is my optimistic blueprint to restore American exceptionalism. And it's got everything in it that you'd ever want to know about. It's got taxes, budgets, PC, immigration, education, the military, the VA, you name it. If it's a problem the political establishment has imposed upon we the people, it's in the book. So you got to get the book. Grab a copy, and you won't forget it. Buy it from my website, and I'll sign it for you, and I'll even ship it to you free. So join the 2020 movement and get 2020, A Clear Vision for America. And before I sign off, there's a few other things I want you to do. Is I want you to start reading some books. And if you want to read some books that are just really outrageous and humorous, and they're Politically Derelict by Jerry Loeb. Hey, I read this book. It was like 2 days. I couldn't put it down, but I had to. I'm an old guy. I got to sleep a little bit, but I couldn't help myself. And then when he came out with the second book, Politically Derelict 2, I read that in a couple of days too. And the only reason I stopped reading it was because the lovely Lainey wanted me to do something. Actually, we had to go and visit some friends, which was really a delightful thing too. So this is a great experience. Guys, start reading books and start learning what all of our different perspectives are and everything. And I think you'll really you'll find your life enriched by doing so. So I'm going to end this this show with on the TLBTV network by wishing you all a very safe and prosperous and joyous rest of 2018. And God bless you all. God bless our vets and our people on active duty. God bless our Corps. God bless America. And please, God, save our America, because we need you now more than ever before.